The Canon R6V is here, and not only that, but Canon are also dropping a new lens, the RF 20-50mm f4 USM power zoom. We're going to be taking a look at both the camera and the lens today as I test them out in the field at a portrait photo shoot, and I'll let you know all my thoughts. As usual, this review is not sponsored, I'm not getting paid, and I don't keep the gear. The V is a new camera line from Canon, but the majority of specs are going to feel familiar, as it's essentially the video version of the recently released R6 III with a few differences. And please keep in mind that I am using a pre-production version of the camera. The R6V is a 32.5 megapixel full-frame camera. Just like the R6 III, you're able to record internal 7K RAW video up to 50p, plus RAW OpenGate up to 30p. You can also film in 4K 30, 60, and 120p in nearly full frame. So while all the footage crops in a little bit, it's great to see we have no APS-C crops on higher frame rates. I have an example. Flicking between photo and video, in stills you are seeing the entire frame, but in video it automatically crops in a little bit, even when you're in 30p, which is again the same as the R6 III. It is minimal, but it is something to keep in mind. This time for today's photo shoot, I'm using C-Log 2. Last time I used C-Log 3. For all these Canon clips, as well as the rest of the review you're watching, I'm using my custom Rec 709 Premiere Pro preset to convert and color grade the footage, and I'll leave a link to it in the description if you want to get it.
Oh, I like that. That was nice. All right, this is like full body. I can like see your feet in the shot as well.
One of the lingering issues with the R6 III for video was its recording limits if you tend to work in hotter climates. So you'll be happy to know that Canon did address this in the R6V. In about 32 Celsius, 90 Fahrenheit ambient temperature, I was able to record up to 62 minutes of 4K 50p footage with the fan set to high and 44 minutes with the fan set to low before it shut down. The R6 III in comparison only reached 22 minutes. I will mention, when you do set the fan to low, it will still ramp up eventually as it starts to overheat, so do keep that in mind if you need a silent camera, as the medium and high fan setting could interfere with recording audio. Again, this is on the upper limit of the weather and temps that you'd be realistically recording in, so if the weather is cooler, you can expect to be able to record for longer. In 7K 25p RAW, I was able to record up to 43 minutes compared to the R6 III's 34 minutes.
Cute. And then actually that looks really nice with you standing just here. The light was like really pretty right here. So this is like, I'm cropping just about here. You can kind of like even just pace around in the spot a little bit, like a couple of steps. Yeah, that's nice.
When you reach overheat, you can turn the camera on a few seconds later and record for another minute or so before it turns off again. This brings the R6V in line with the thermal performance of the Sony a7 IV and a7S III. However, it does still fall short of the Lumix S1 II, which is able to record about 90 minutes in 50p, where it only stops because of the battery not overheating. These longer recording times are largely thanks to the addition of active cooling, which you can immediately see when you take a look at this new body. It weighs 688 grams and is very different from the R6 III in terms of the build, even though they share a similar spec sheet. This camera is thicker overall, and you can easily see all the ventilation around the body. At the front, there is a toggle switch which lets you control power zoom for compatible lenses.
So I did want to show you, you do have power zoom on both the camera and the lens. So this is what it looks like on the lens. I'm just going to go from 20mm all the way to 50. And then you can also do it with the camera as well. So here we are at 20 and here we are back at 50, and I have it set to slow. If you don't want to use power zoom, you can also flicker over into manual zoom, and then you've got the whole lens to do the zooming. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here we are at 50 and here we are at 20. So here you can go as slow or fast as you want.
You can adjust the zoom speed in 15 steps, and you can set it differently for standby and recording.
That's a pretty good job staying focused while zooming.
You'll notice there are a few new default shortcuts. You still have the fully articulating Flippy screen, but something to note is there's no viewfinder. It also includes mounting threads on the bottom and side. This camera has an electronic shutter only, is weather sealed, and has dual card slots. There are a couple of things I would have liked to see to make this an even stronger video camera. Top-mounted threads would have been great to be able to attach accessories without always having to cage your camera, which makes it larger and heavier. There's also the argument for dual CF Express slots, both for redundancy and overflow. Since some of these codecs fill cards very quickly, having matching slots would make overflow a lot easier for videographers.
And then I feel like it'd be cool if you wanted to like, maybe you can look over your shoulder at me and I'll get like this in like a foreground kind of thing. It was really peaceful until that guy showed up.
Before we move on to the lens, and now that you've had plenty of time to look at the sample footage, you'll see the video quality is essentially in line with the R6V, which is a good thing. I really enjoy what video looks like out of both these cameras.
I feel like if we did like a crouching shot, maybe here in like the sun, we could do some. Stomp it out for you first. So if you wanted to crouch, yeah, kind of like that way, yeah. Ooh, that's so nice with the sun. Oh my gosh, love. Oh, what if you grab one of these? You can like kind of play with it.
Something I'm pretty surprised about though is that even though this is a video camera, there is no shutter angle. Shutter angle means that you can set your shutter to 180 degrees, for example, and forget about it even as you switch between frame rates. So I really felt like that was missing while using it, as it's a key video feature. It feels like this V camera sits in between Canon's stills lineup and its cinema range, so it's more of a bridge rather than a replacement. I think it's aimed at users who are leaning heavily into video, who want the ergonomics and some features of a video camera, but don't want to step up into the cost of the cinema line. So you would have to weigh up the trade-offs, as there are some quality of life features added in for video users and other features are simplified to make this camera feel more consumer friendly. I tested rolling shutter and I ended up with the same numbers as I did from the R6V, so while they're not the top of the line speeds, for most situations it shouldn't be concerning. In 4K 25 and 50p, as well as 16:9 7K RAW, it was about 14.3 milliseconds. In 7K RAW OpenGate, it's 18.1, and the electronic shutter in JPEG stills mode is about 13.5. Let's jump to a different day to take a look at autofocus and stabilization. I'm using the RF 24mm f1.4 VCM for these tests, and I have the camera set to continuous AF with both focus and transition speeds at their fastest settings. The R6V runs on Canon's dual pixel AF system, which uses the entire sensor for phase detection AF. There are a few subject detection modes, including human, animals, or vehicles, plus an auto mode. Next, we have stabilization. I find standard mechanical looks good. It's stable, but still has natural movement to the footage. Digital IS on crops in and smooths the footage even more, but you can start to see a little bit of warping with larger jolts. Lastly, just like on the R6V, I'm not a fan of digital IS enhanced, which is the strongest setting and crops in the most. It creates a noticeable motion blur while trying to correct movement. If you do need that level of stabilization, I would say a gimbal is a better option to retain higher image quality. All of the footage I captured of Haley, by the way, was making use of the new lens's stabilization.
I also want to show you the stabilization of the lens. So right now I have it switched off. I'm just going to move a little bit and then switch it on. And then you can instantly see the difference. And I'm going to do a walking shot to show you the stabilization as well. So I'm going to start off with it off. And then I'm going to switch it on and we'll walk exactly the same.
This lens has 6 stops of image stabilization.
So I do also want to take photos while we're here as well, so I am going to use the 20 to 50 for that.
So, is the lack of a mechanical shutter going to be an issue? Well, if you're after a stills first camera and you want to do some video on the side, the R6V makes more sense. But if your priority is videography with the ability to capture stills when needed, then this V could be an option for you. I did notice that the JPEG processing is quite heavily compressed even when I had it set to higher quality options. You might notice the JPEGs look a little bit over sharpened. This is not due to the lens, as I also used it on the R5 II, which you'll see in a moment, and I didn't see these artifacts. In saying that, in natural outdoor light, the photos look great straight out of the camera and exactly what you'd expect. The photos are clean, detailed, and they match Canon's usual color rendering, so there's not really anything out of the ordinary here. Where the electronic-only shutter might show its limitations is in more challenging situations. So under particular artificial lighting, you might see banding, and with fast-moving subjects, you might notice some jelloing or distortion. I want to take a look at the new RF 20 to 50mm f4. This lens weighs 420 grams. It has image stabilization and internal zoom with a zoom ring, focus ring, and customizable ring. The zoom ring has two options, including power zoom and manual zoom, which you can toggle with the switch. There's also an AF to MF switch and a switch to toggle stabilization on and off. This lens is moisture resistant, uses a 67mm filter thread, has a minimum focus distance of 24 centimeters, and makes use of Canon's nano USM focusing. This lens performed well out on location, and I really like the footage we captured with it. It has a very fine level of sharpness, which is consistent throughout the entire focal range. Even at f4, you can still get a decent amount of subject separation, especially when you're working on the 50mm end and keeping some distance between your subject and background like I have in a few of my shots.
So I switched over to the R5 Mark II so I can get some shots with this lens with a mechanical shutter as well, just so you can see the quality of those images. Oh, and I got a viewfinder.
This lens has 9 aperture blades. It looks like it has a little bit of texture to it, but since this is a slower aperture lens, it's hard to tell since it's very small in most footage. I did notice a defined lens flare popping up in some shots, and it looks like it has a good handle on chromatic aberration. The reality of shooting with an f4 lens is that you're usually going to have to bump up your ISO a fair amount to be able to keep your shutter speed fast enough for movement shots. Luckily, the R5 II handles noise exceptionally well. I'm super impressed. I could have gotten away with a slightly lower ISO and shutter speed, but hey, I think the R5 II files look great considering. By the way, I'm going to be uploading an entire video using the R5 II, so let me know if there's anything you want me to cover in that. With stills, I had an extremely high in-focus ratio, which yes, f4 definitely helps with that, but it's good to know this lens is consistent. Only at 20mm did I notice some distortion in the very corners of the frame. While this lens makes more sense for video work, the power zoom toggle does work in photo mode. It can be a quick way to get from one end of the barrel to the other, but I found it's hard to be precise if you're after a very particular focal length. The focal range also makes a lot of sense for video. While I was using it on the R6V, it felt like it was covering a versatile range without feeling too restrictive. At the wide end of 20mm, it can also be used for vlogging. For stills, on the other hand, it felt a bit limited on the long end. There were definitely moments where I wanted just a bit more reach. So that's where something like a 24 to 70mm feels more natural for portrait photography at least. Let me know your thoughts on the R6V and this new lens in the comments. And more importantly, do you see this as the beginning of a new direction for Canon video cameras or just a one-off?